Joining me now is Democratic pollster Cornell Belcher. He's also an MSNBC contributor. Our panel is also staying with us. Yamiche, we kept her inside, thank goodness. I'm glad you're not outside for us there at the White House. Howard and Ramesh. I should remind folks, Cornell was one of the pollsters on Team Barack Obama right from the start.
2008, right from the start.
And that is the first thing that has been interesting in both Kamala Harris and Cory Booker, and how different it was for Barack Obama, is this leaning in. Are you, just as an African-American male of our age, are you surprised?
Well, one, I want to say this speaks to sort of the American exceptionalism. And whether you're a Democrat or you're Republican, when you see this diverse field and coming out and you're saying America is moving to a better place. And when you look at the past Congress, America is moving to a better place. What was interesting now is in 2008, we had to, the idea that Barack Obama couldn't run as a black candidate and couldn't specifically go after black voters. It's different now, and I think that speaks to how the country is changing. But it also speaks to an important lane in a crowded field. If you tell me where the majority of African American women are going to break hard, I'm going to tell you who's probably going to be nominated for the Democratic Party. That's how important it is. A lot of people put a lot of attention on Iowa and New Hampshire, which were important early on. But when African American voters start breaking hard for Obama, which they started doing before Iowa, quite frankly, the race was pretty much over, because it then means he wins South Carolina, he wins North Carolina, he wins Mississippi, he wins Georgia. He runs through the SEC.
There's one thing that we might have this time that we've not had before, Yamiche, which is a fractured African-American vote, right? Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, and Joe Biden, because of his association with Barack Obama, all feel as if they have the right to be sort of get early supporters in the African-American vote. If we're splitting it in three, what does that do to this race?
I think what it does is makes people have to show their receipts, as millennials would say. I guess it would be to show their records, because I think what you want is someone who can show for a very, or at least what African-American women are going to want, is someone who can say, this is what I've been doing for the last 10 years, for the last 15 years, for the last 20 years. Cory Booker today basically said, I'm the only U.S. senator who's living in the inner city, who's living in an African-American community. That's putting himself saying, look, I actually live and sleep and drink the water here and understand what people are going through. So I think it's going to be a lot about that and their histories.
You know what I did find interesting about Cory Booker's launch is it's almost as if he's saying, pay no attention to my title now as senator. I really want you to pay attention to my record as mayor of Newark, which tells you how toxic it is to be a Washingtonian these days.
Well, I think it also is Cory Booker's attempt to not just avoid Washington, but to say who he is. And the fact that he did it from his front yard in Newark, the fact that he pinned his Senate campaign and he pins his national reputation on the idea that he helped Newark, that he stayed in Newark, that he's a Rhodes Scholar, that he's got all the advantages, and he put all of his brains and his experience into trying to help Newark. That's a powerful message. I must tell you that, having covered these for a long time, South Carolina is the Iowa and New Hampshire of what we're talking about right here.
It could be.
And I remember when covering Barack Obama, going down to South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina in the fall before the primary there, having a huge rally hosted by Oprah Winfrey. And basically, I was standing there with the Obama campaign people. You might have even been there.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that's it.
This is something.
That's it. It's over.
You know, Ramesh, Cory Booker is fascinating if he got to the general election, because he's basically closer, certainly ideologically, much more somewhere between, I think, Obama and Bill Clinton. You know, he's closer to there than he is sort of this progressive or somebody that's farther to the left, or what the perception of Kamala Harris or an Elizabeth Warren. But the Wall Street ties are going to cut badly for him, potentially.
You do wonder whether he's put himself in a place which is no win, because he talks a lot about sort of unifying the country, healing the country, and there may be an appetite for that in a candidate who's running against Donald Trump, and he's got a lot of history that suggests that that's who he really is. But he's also done things like saying back in July about supporters of Brett Kavanaugh's nomination. Keep in mind, this is before anybody's heard of Christine Blasey Ford. They are complicit in evil. that's not, I think the demands of being a Senate Democrat have moved him to this partisan place that's a bad fit for the current campaign message or his history.
It is funny. Cory Booker was sort of this idea of the next generation of post-partisan people, right, or post-racial leaders, and there was that aspect. He is trying to run more as a traditional Democrat and a little bit further to the left than maybe he's even comfortable with.
Well, listen, I don't think you're going to be hurt that much in a Democrat primary moving to
No doubt.
moving to left.
But is it authentic when he moves?
But look, I remember when he criticized Barack Obama for going after Mitt Romney.
Yes. I also remember when he had to speak to camera to say I was wrong, and he didn't look comfortable doing it.
I remember that. But I also look. One of the things I want to dispel is look. We have two prominent African American candidates in there. They're both going to have to work their butts off to win African American voters here. They're not going to just African American voters aren't going to break for them just because they're black.
Because here's the question I have. I think all three. Let's say Joe Biden gets in. I think they're all going to work really hard to try to win over this vote. They all may succeed to a degree. If the African American vote becomes fairly equally fractured, or where it's not, then what becomes the swing vote? Who are the swing voters here? What happens?
Well, if I'm sitting at the Elizabeth Warren campaign, I'm certainly hoping that happens,
right?
Or Jill Brown campaign,
Sherrod Brown, or whoever. Yeah,
I'm certainly hoping that happens because that gives you an opening up the middle. Listen, I think in the end, I don't think just Biden. I think all these candidates, they have to compete hard for the African-American votes, and they all have sort of potential problems. Biden certainly had potential problems with the crime bill, right?
Booker with Wall Street.
Booker with Wall Street, and Senator Harris was a prosecutor.
Right.
So I think there's weaknesses there that can be exploited by, with all three of them.
Yamiche, if you're not one of these candidates, and I guess, how do you court you want to basically be everybody's second choice, third choice? What is the best way to try to get in and win over some African-American voters if you feel as if, well, geez, the field looks crowded?
I think it's to do exactly what Democrats have said that they would do, which is not just talk about diversity, but actually have diversity. I think even if you're not a candidate of color, that means you're going to have diverse people working your campaign, a chief of staff, a campaign manager, someone to one, show what's going on, but also actually have a platform and something to say, okay, I don't want to just talk about criminal justice. I'm also going to talk about education and healthcare because black people eat and they read as well. So I think that's what you're going to have to do in some ways to not just to really think to get the attention of African American voters.
Very quickly, how negative will this get within the African American community?
We're in uncharted waters. We really are.
We haven't had something.
We have not had anything like this before ever. So it could.
Are you nervous? I've seen CBC politics can get ugly here in Washington.
Yes, there's going to be an attack ad.
And I also just say uncharted waters are great.
They can be.
For watching,
yes, right.
They can be, but they can make you seasick. Hey, Cornell Belcher, thank you. Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Beat the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.